Dev School Part 3. If you are new here, well, you know that we've already done 1 and 2, and in AI Agent Dev School Part 1, which is a pretty long 3-hour session, we started from assuming that you've never been a programmer before, you've never used TypeScript, JS is, you've never made a GitHub clone or a pull request or anything like that. So we wanted to, that was Part 1. Part 2, we got a bit into all of the different abstractions, but we really focused on what the plugin is, how the plugin wrapper works, and then we made some actions, and we talked about the different actions. And we made like an action to get some current news, made just a couple hello world things. And now we're going to get into Part 3, which is talking about providers and evaluators. So we'll start with the README, we'll go through that, and then we'll maybe make a little hello world provider. I think we did that last time, but we'll just kind of go over that and then turn that into, I think we're going to do some sort of data extraction thing. Like we want to get to know some things about a user. And like there's like an easy way and a hard way to do that. I'll probably do like kind of the easiest way just to make things kind of flow, if that makes sense. If you notice, we're on Discord right now. There's about 40 people hanging out here in the Discord. Usually people kind of watch the stream on X, but if you have any questions, please come and post your questions here. I'll probably be doing a bit of instruction going through all of this stuff, and then I'll come back and check the questions. If you missed dev streams for 1 and 2, they are on YouTube. You can just search AI Agent Dev School, maybe throw Shaw in there if it's not there immediately. Should just show up on YouTube. My YouTube is Moon Makes Magic. Should probably change to Shaw Makes Magic, but Moon is my alter ego. And you can find that on my YouTube. And also in the AI Agent or the Agent Dev School channel, you'll see that there's links to both the first episode and second episode, as well as like full summaries and timestamps of those, so you can kind of just get through that. So yeah, let's just get into it. I've had a pretty long but very exciting day. A lot of the team has actually come for an onsite, so I'm sort of hiding in the corner with my MacBook to get through this. I'm a little tired, but I'm really, really happy to be with you guys and share this stuff. So we're just going to go nuts. Before I do anything, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me okay. Everything sounds good. I'm using a new microphone. Just want to make sure that's all good. Yeah, good quality. Sound good? Great. Love it. Okay. Let's get down to business. So first things first, if you were at AI Agent Dev School Part 1 or whatever, I'd really recommend doing a couple of things to make sure that you're on the latest branch. If I type in git status, sometimes you'll see like I have this agent source index.ts and it's been modified. And if I wanted to check out another branch, main, you can see it sometimes will get yelled at. Your local changes could not be, would be overwritten by checkout. And so it's actually going to prevent me from like checking out the latest or, or basically pulling the latest. And I guarantee if you were here a couple days ago and you haven't pulled since then, a lot has changed. I mean, the velocity of this project is freaking nuts. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how to update first, just to make sure that we're kind of on the same page. If I go to our Eliza repo, you will see that we have 44 pull requests. And of those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are just done in the last 24 hours. And I know that there were more, and some of those must have gotten pulled in. So that's kind of the velocity. And a lot of these things are like really critical fixes, as well as some really cool features, like a new Slack plugin and stuff like that. So just be aware that like in a fast moving project, if you want to stay up, you'll have to kind of stay on the main branch. So you can go here and you can see that we have this main. J.K. Brooks merged something an hour ago. So, probably important for some people. So I'm going to show you how to check that out and make sure you're on main. So if you type git status, that will show you the current status of where you are in your Git history and situation, right? It's the status of the current like available files that can be staged to be committed or files that are not staged. For example, I have some changes here in this character file. I just like not character file, in the agent, I just kind of disabled some stuff because I was having some quick issues. And I just want to make this work. And so now I've clearly made some changes, which I'm not going to commit. I don't want to comment all this out and commit this, but I do just want to have it, right? And I don't want to lose it. So something you can do that's really useful is you can stash your changes. So if I made those changes, I could just type in git stash, and that will hide all my changes. See how it's reverted? Oh no, but that's okay. I can get them back because I've stashed them somewhere, and you can actually go pull things back from your stash. But in order to, I had to do that so that I could make sure that I was on the right branch, because if I had made a bunch of changes, I might not be able to pull in the latest. So a way to do this is, well, if you see that we have a main branch, so I'm going to check out main. And now you can see that I'm on main, and my branch is behind origin main by 484 commits. Whoa. And you can see that if I use git pull, it'll update my local branch. So let's try it. Git pull. Pulls all that in. And now we're like fully updated. We are on the latest version, right? Git pull is like, hey, go pull. Sometimes, if you had multiple remotes, you might see this too. Git pull origin main. Origin is kind of, you can set multiple remotes. A remote is like a git URL. And there could be, you could actually have different remotes. Like you could go to /Eliza, my personal branch, right? And you can see that I'm behind, but this is a valid remote. And I could also add like git remote add /Loon, right? And now I could pull from /Loon or push to /Loon. Git push /Loon main. And I just pushed, and then if I go here, wow, now I'm up to date, right? I actually just updated my remote. So just so you know, like Git can talk to multiple remotes. You can get information from multiple places. But origin is the one by default, right? It's wherever you cloned from will be origin. So I git checkout main, git pull, all good. I am up to date, and you can see I pulled from this AICTZ/Eliza. We're up to date. And the last thing I have to do is I have to go get those changes that I wanted. I could, obviously I could just go comment this out again and that'd be fine. But I want to just make sure that if I did stash some changes, I could reapply them. So I can git stash apply, and you'll see that it gave me back just those changes that were, even though I was on some totally different branch that was way far in the past, it only cared about the things that were different that I had changed from that git point in time, and it stashed that. So now you can see I have the changes I was expecting, where I'm just loading the Node plugin and the Bootstrap plugin, and I don't want to store this stuff. I'm not here to save this stuff. I just wanted to do that for some debug. So I hope that's kind of helpful. Sometimes people struggle with like, how do I pull main, or like it's not working. Just git checkout origin main or git checkout main, and then git pull, and you should be good to go. Cool. Okay, let's actually get into it now. So that was just a little bit of warm-up exercise, and hopefully it gets you make sure that you're running the latest version. Now let's actually get into the good stuff. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to ai16z.github.io/ this is cool. This is really a new cool thing. But what we're looking for is actually the repo docs for Eliza. So you can see we have some great documentation. I showed this in the last one as well. Thank you, Jen, for making this very beautiful and putting a lot of detail into here. And this is kind of an ongoing thing. If you're interested in contributing to Eliza, this is a great place to start, contributing to the docs, for sure. So inside of here, we have our core concepts. And we've already covered character files in episode 1. We covered actions quite extensively in episode 2. We talked about evaluators and providers a lot in both, and I made like kind of a basic hello world, but I think we even made that kind of basic emotion provider that just randomly chose some emotions. But we didn't really get into too much detail in providers or evaluators in any kind of deeper way. So what I was thinking is that we would show like a practical provider evaluator loop. And I'm just going to struggle bust some code today. It's not going to be the most fun, especially since I'm a little tired, but we're going to get through it. We're going to do some, something kind of interesting and show some like, I think an emergent pattern that will probably be very useful. So one thing that, so I was going to do something different. I was going to work on basically extracting emotion and then kind of setting the emotion of the agent dynamically. I thought that'd be pretty cool. but I was talking to one of our partners, and we realized that like a really popular use of agents is basically to fill out a form. Like if you think about what most apps are just filling out forms. Like what are you trying to launch? What are you trying to do? Set this setting, put your username and password here. And then it goes and does some crazy stuff in the back end, but that's all back end stuff. The user doesn't control that. So what we're really doing with agentic applications is we are replacing the front end with an agent. And the real benefit there is that the agent comes to you, comes to your social media, and you never have to leave your favorite app. But the downside is that it doesn't just have the ability to place a form and embed it for you. Some of them kind of do. You can kind of do that, but not really, right? So we have to kind of think about, well, how does an agent get all of the information that it needs, right? So it's going to have to obviously extract information, and then it's going to have to evaluate, does it have enough information that it has to keep extracting information? And part of extracting information is like we have an evaluator that can just go look at the chat and pull stuff out. But part of it is that the agent actually has to prompt you. Like if it's trying to get your name, it has to ask you for your name, or you're probably just never going to give it, right? So we want to kind of create this loop. We want a provider that I can think of like a lot of more advanced ways to do this, but we'll just show kind of the most basic pattern here, which is we're just going to call this like example form provider. And what the form provider is going to need to do, it's going to need to get name, where I live, and what I do for work. Maybe that's fine, right? / fun. For me, they are the same. Right. So we want some sort of provider, which is saying, hey, let's go get these things. And it not only needs to be kind of like an instruction for what we want to get, but also what we have or don't have already, right? So the loop here is going to be like steps, right? One, check database for information we already have, right? If we don't have it, indicate to the user, to the agent in the provider that we want it, right? So it could look like a checklist, or the user is not given their name. The agent's goal should be to get their name. Could be something stupidly simple like that. Indicate that to the agent in the provider that we want it. Once we have all of it, complete the goal, hide the provider, or just complete the goal and send off the data somewhere to some API. I don't know. Maybe we'll just like save it as a JSON or something just to show you the idea of the action. But you can basically imagine like what we're building is this is a very, very popular use case, I think, of bots going forward, which is that it extracts certain amounts of information about you, which is like it could be anything. It could be a form. But, oh, you want to buy a car? Well, what kind of car do you want to buy? Like, what's your price range? And then go and send that information as structured data off. And like the output of that will eventually be like, something like Shaw, San Francisco, CA. What I do for fun? Building AGI. Right? And we could say name, location, job. Sure. Right? And so we can take this and send this off to some API, and we could do anything with that, So let's say we were trying to build a virtual concierge, like, hey, what can I help you with? Oh, I need this done. Okay, cool. Like, that's great. Let me get some information about you. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Here's, oh, well, okay, what, and I asked you for your birthday, but you didn't give it to me. Like, what was your birthday? Oh, it's blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Well, great. That's everything I need from you, and I just sent that off, and I'll let you know when I hear something back. Right? There's like 1,000 applications right there, and I really want to see you guys make these kinds of things. Like, I think you could really build a lot of businesses and have a real advantage over like anyone who has to go to a website and sign up and type all this stuff in. It's just not nearly as interesting or fun, right? It's way better that it just comes to you, just works. Cool. So that's kind of the steps, right? Check the database for all the information we already have. If we don't have the info, indicate to the agent, the provider that we want it. Now, maybe there's and then once we have all the information, complete the goal. So this part, check the database for the information we already have. This is going to be a provider for sure. And we're going to determine some business logic. Well, if we have the name, but we don't have where I live, then say, oh, we know the person's name, we don't know where they live, right? So that's definitely a provider thing. And once we have all the information, complete the goal. Now, this could be an action, and the action could be validated and say, okay, well, yes, we can call an action, and whenever it's the appropriate time to call the action. But I don't think that this should be an action, because actions have one real limitation, which is that they don't always run, right? They only run when the agent decides to call them, which is not necessarily at the end of a form builder form. However, we do have an abstraction that always runs, and that is the evaluator. So evaluation is like a really loaded word. What is evaluation? Well, it's like when you check something to see if it's right, usually, right? And that's the most simple, basic description of that. And we use evaluate a lot in AI. It's a very common word. And I want to make sure that in the context of this framework, we have a very specific meaning for evaluator, which is that it runs after the agent has performed all of its actions in its loop. That could be responding to a user, messaging them, doing some kind of activity, sending off an API call, calling any action, and then it will run the evaluation at the end. So the point of the evaluator is to be continually evaluating, like it's the agent's ability to reflect on itself, its world state, the current chat state, everything, how it even did on the actions. And if you look in the code, you'll see that there's some issues where there's no guarantee necessarily that the evaluator runs after the complete action. Actions can fire stuff off asynchronously in return. But generally, that's where the long term we're trying to go is toward like a pretty much guarantee that the evaluator runs after the action has already returned to the user and given us everything we need. And there might be some other asynchronous stuff in the action going on, but pretty much once it's like committed to memory, the evaluator then will run. So we'll look at a couple of example providers and evaluators to get some context, and then we will, I think we'll build this. So we want a provider that checks the database for the information we already have, and then if we don't have the info, provide some like directive that we want to get it. That's all just going to happen emergently, and the agent should respond to that. And then once we have all the info, well, basically this is actually, we should wait one step. Evaluate for new info and store in the database if there is any, and that's evaluator. And once we have all the info, complete the goal and send off. And after goal is complete, provider shows that information is filled out and evaluator no longer validates, which means it doesn't run. So validation is like, generally, validation is is something correct, is something true or false. Under some conditions, is it valid? And when we decide if an action or an evaluator is valid, that's you can basically create any conditions you want for that. But what that means in the action case is that the action will be available for the agent to call if it's valid. And what it means in the evaluator case is that it will automatically run after all of the actions for the agent in that tick of the loop. Okay, does that make sense? So these are the steps that we're going to take. We should probably review a couple of evaluators and providers to sort of understand what's in there now and why we have them. And honestly, we should just like copy and paste one because maybe we'll write it from scratch. I don't know. Cool. Let's see. Got a question. Another big application is client service or customer service. Can you think through that use case? Yeah, absolutely. I would say that this is not the ideal customer service flow. You'd probably have more of like a tree branching thing, but this evaluator provider would actually probably also be the way that you build that, right? We're not going to do that exact flow, But you certainly could. You could also just, instead of like name, location, job, you could be like, why are you here? / what help do you need, right? And so you can imagine that the first version of this is like reason. Okay, sure. No, I am angry that my phone bill is too expensive. So expensive, right? I don't know, whatever. And then that could be part of like a routing to somewhere else, right? That could be like, okay, now go put this person on a Zendesk queue, and okay, well, oh god, I gotta talk to Shaw. He's super pissed about his phone bill. Like, okay, great, do it, whatever. Send the agent out to help him from there. There's a lot you could do from there. And you could also make this much more complicated. That each of these could be a mode. Like, okay, instead of just being like reason, we have some collection of reasons, right? And this reason is complaints, right? And we have some list of reasons. And then that could be like reasons.complaint or something if it was a TypeScript thing. And then from there, if the reason is complaint, we could have like a whole separate provider thing that's like, okay, we'll now go into the complaint mode for this user and start getting all the information about their complaint. It's really not super different from the kind of state management you'd see in an application where you'd like choose one of a drop down and it would switch out all the other things and kind of make the form custom for you. It's kind of a simple thing, similar thing. But I'm going to leave that for the reader to extrapolate on themselves. In the interest of time, we'll keep this a little bit more simple. Cool. So let's start with the docs. We like the docs. And we'll start with providers. And we have a few built-in providers. A really good example is the time provider. Providers have one function, and that function can return null or empty. That would, instead of having a validator step, the providers just have they just inject context, and so they can kind of validate themselves by returning null if there's no reason to validate in this case. And they're just kind of culled out of the provider list for that context. But they have one function called get, and that function you can pass in a runtime, the latest message. You can also pass in state. You can pass in some options too if you had options. And then that provider will do something like get the current date, get the current time, current year, and then return a string containing that. And so what providers return is a string. A string is just a bunch of characters. It could be letters, numbers, symbols, whatever. But it's it has to be a string. It's not as opposed to like an object or a value, right? You are injecting this into a text context, and so the provider is providing a text string which then goes into the context, right? And you can imagine it's the equivalent of, okay, if I go to Claude and I'm like, the current time is 7:21 on December 5th. I'm like, okay, well, that would be like context. I'm like, what time is it? It's a pretty dumb question, right? Obviously. But you can imagine if the user was talking about what time is it and had this context, it would probably work. I need to be redirect. I should note that I don't actually have access to real-time information about the current time. You've told me it's this. Would you like me to treat it? Yes. But this is Claude vanilla, right? Its goal is to be very scientific. It's not a character. It's not playing a role. So it would just, like, in our context, we're injecting this stuff so that Claude would have access to all of that. And then it'd be like, hey, what time is it? And it'd be like, oh, well, in my, where I am, it's 7:21. What about you? Right? And this is basically what providers do. They just shove it into the context, and then we can talk and have a conversation and get the responses. Another good one is the fax provider. On this, I think we're just probably going to copy this because it's like really similar to what we want. This just gets us a list of facts. The facts that it gets us are extracted from the conversation as it runs. I noticed that I could not get retrieval to run super well on like older conversation because it was just hard to pull up the most relevant stuff to the current conversation based on old conversation. If you're like, hey, how you doing? Is it going to just go find every instance of the human talking to the agent like, hey, how you doing? It seems okay. But what I really care about are the things that happened in the conversation, the real facts of the conversation. Like what happened to you, what happened to the stuff around you, like what you were actually saying. And when I think about my own memory, like I really don't remember conversations from people very well, like verbatim, but I definitely remember like the gist, the context, the really meaty ideas. And so that's kind of what we're doing here is we extract the facts. And then whenever your conversation goes outside of the like short-term conversation window, which is only like maybe 32 messages or something like that, then it still has access to the facts from the conversation long before that. And it can both pull up the recent facts as well as the most relevant facts. And all of those will have timestamps. So even if you're like, yeah, I'm really sick today, it'd be like, oh, 4 days ago you said I'm really sick today, right? So this is actually a very similar pattern to what we're going to do. It gets some information from the database, it shoves it into the context, and then it gives it to us in a way that we can use, which is not entirely different than a form, but obviously this has some specific to facts. We have boredom, but I'm kind of bored of that, so we're not going to talk about it. Let's talk about evaluators. So an evaluator has a name. It has similes, but this is probably going to go away because we don't need it. It just runs. It doesn't even really need the name for selection. It's just kind of a good documentation. And it doesn't need the description, but again, it's just good for documentation. It'll be important for the registry and stuff like that. But the main things that matter are these two functions, validate and handler. Validate will say, should this evaluator run this frame? And if not, then just ignore it. The handler is, well, what is the evaluator code itself? Like what actually runs? So this is a function handle. A handler is basically a pattern where you're like, okay, cool, now call this function on this thing, right? And so you can see it's the same thing. It's passing in the runtime, message, state, all that. And then you can do some function and then return some value. I don't think that the return value does much right now, but mostly it's about what happens in here, like what state you're changing. I think a good, I'm surprised that the fact evaluator, this is cool, but what I'm surprised by is that the fact evaluator is just showing this. There's probably some issues, and not the actual code of the evaluator. It's kind of long. Maybe we'll just take a look at that. That would probably be in Bootstrap. Okay, we're getting maybe too many plugins here. It's kind of nuts. We're going to move a lot of these into a community repo and then just have like a core community plugin repo, but yeah, we're getting a lot. It's kind of cool, but it's getting a lot. So we have this fact evaluator, and we can see that there has this handler function. And we'll just run through that a little bit just to kind of give you an idea. It's going to go and get the state from the message. Or the compose state takes a message. That state has everything we need to inject it into any completion context, like the recent conversation, the formatted facts we already have, pretty much everything that we want in our context. Once we've gotten the state, we'll compose a context out of the state. And what's happening there is that we're taking a template, this template, and when we compose state, we replace things like these evaluation examples, this recent messages, with actual information. We basically what's called hydrating the template, right? So we're replacing these macros with actual information, and then we can send that out. And what happens, what we call that is composing. And so when we compose the context, we're taking the state object, which has all of the, the values for those things, like evaluation examples and recent messages, and then we're actually composing them into this template and then sending it off to generate something. So generate object array will generate, it actually just wraps the normal text generate from like OpenAI or whatever, but then it extracts objects out of that, which JavaScript can work on, and then it can, in this case, it extracts an array of objects, right? And these are facts. What this is doing is it's extracting facts and then creating an array of facts and then storing those facts. Like it'll filter them out if they're already known, or if the type is not fact, or if they're already in the bio of the user or something, etc. We'll filter them out, and then for each one, we're going to save it as a memory, right? And then we'll create the memory, and finally we will resolve. I think that this, for some reason, waits a little bit between fact uploads. I'm not really sure why, but there's probably some good reason for it, so I'm not going to mess with And then that's the handler function, right? And you can see that inside of here, it's just handler. Like so something you know in JavaScript or TypeScript, if you type in handler is the handler, that works. But if the name of the value is the same as the key, then you can just use the key, and that will automatically say, okay, well, this, this is what you mean, right? Cool, no problem. Okay, get a little copy here. Okay, so we've covered providers, and you can see we have the facts provider and time provider, and we've covered evaluators. Now we got to make our own. I'm going to take a little look at the Discord and just see if there's anything. Anybody got any questions? Can we have evaluators before actions? No, you can't. I think that this would be really interesting to have evaluator injection points, so we could have pre-evaluate and post-evaluate. Pre-evaluate would be like anytime the agent gets a message, we could call the evaluator right then. Anytime the evaluator, or anytime we've received the message and the user's like sent us something, we could then call the evaluator right then. And then anytime we respond with a response or action, we could also call the evaluator right then. But that's the only place we're calling it right now. So just so you know, like, yeah, we could have those entry points. I think that's a really good idea, but we do not have that today. It'd be a pretty easy PR though if you wanted to think about it and insert that. So evaluators run at the end of an action loop because they are really like the agent reflecting on itself, reflecting on stuff in the world, or like, accruing knowledge, etc. Okey-doke. Do we have any more questions? I love what it's hard for me to see names in streamer mode, but somebody asked can evaluators be used to ensure transactions go through on Solana? Maybe. I mean, it depends. I'd probably have some kind, I don't know. I'd have to see a use case of that. Like, the goal of the evaluator is really just to run every time the agent like responds in a loop. It's kind of the end of the thing. Just go run like extract the facts, update the world model, get whatever you need to do done. I don't think it's like great for ensuring. Oh, right. I'm not sharing my screen on Discord for some reason. Interesting. Sorry, 1 second. Let me just make sure that I'm sharing everything. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Can evaluators be used to ensure transactions go through on Solana? Yeah, I don't think that's a great use of them, but I do think you could, we're going to have more of a unified system around this. I think you could basically add something to your agent that was just checking that, or you could have a provider that was checking on the current Solana transaction status. And if it didn't go through, I'd probably have a provider that was tracking that and then would bring up a warning to tell the user that it was not, that it was like not ready. And then they'd be like, I don't know, man, it's not working. So I think that's probably the way to do it, is probably like think about the provider provides information into the agent so that would know like the current status. Actions are things where it could be like, okay, well, hey, by the way, man, it didn't work. You want me to try it again? You'd be like, yeah, please do it. Okay, cool. Call the action. And evaluators are things that would be constantly like pulling from the chat. So for the trust marketplace for Mark, that's pretty much all evaluator, right? Like he's just silently looking there, and you're shilling your contract addresses, and he's like running that evaluator on the trust database, doing a whole paper trade thing to update that. And then, oh, cool, this person's high trust. Well, let's make a non-paper, like a real trade. How hard is it to access the bias for neural nodes so I can change it? I don't really know what you mean. I'm not really sure what you mean, but you could definitely like parse something like like any kind of JavaScript text into a number and then add a bias to it if you have kind of structured information. Anyway, cool. We're gonna get into this I'll answer some more questions at the end. And feel free to answer each other's questions too if you're interested. Okay, so let's go back to our to-dos. Let's see. So let's just start with, let's see. Let's just start with the most simple thing. We just want to like know if we have the user's name or not, right? Because it has their username, but it doesn't have their name. So let's start with maybe we'll just start with the evaluator part of this, right? Let's extract the name. And I have this fact evaluator. I mean, I could just write one from scratch. It's probably a better way to do it, right? Yeah, I'll just probably build it up from scratch, although I do like just copying and pasting stuff. So we'll say extract name. I just feel like it's going to be so close to this. Whatever, we'll just do it for fun. Get user data, right? Nice fresh thing. We'll say const get user data evaluator. It's got a name, it's got some similes, it's got a validate function, it's got a handler. Okay. Looking good. And it needs one more thing, which is description and examples, right? So this is like the most basic evaluator. It's not gonna do a whole lot. And maybe we'll just start right there. Let's just get this in there and make sure that it's doing something at all, right? So we'll say console.log evaluating stuff, right? Okay. So this validate return true. We'll probably change that later, but that's definitely gonna always put the evaluator in, and we're just gonna log evaluating stuff, right? Super simple. Now, I put this in the plugin Bootstrap. I'd made kind of a plugin dev school last time. You know, I'm going to do something even crazier this time. I'm actually not going to put this in a plugin. I'm going to put this in the agent, just so you can see what happens if you were to like make your own agent without using a plugin at all. That's something we haven't done. So I have this like super hello world evaluator, right? Like super hello world. Let's see, cursor not showing on screen share. Uh-oh. Switch your screen you're sharing. Thought I was. Share entire screen. I could have sworn I must have lost it. Okay. Sorry guys. I'm trying to jump between this. Seems like that's working. Is that working? You guys see that? Cool. Great. Okie doke. Awesome. Thanks, guys. I really like having the crew helping me out. So it's clearly the most like hello world freaking evaluator, right? I gave him console.log. Hello world. Oh my god, right? Whatever. Or maybe I'll just like log the message. Cool. And then I need an action. Right? No, sorry. Not an action. What am I saying? I need a provider. And I'll just make a new provider. And we'll just say new file, user, data, provider. .ts, const, data provider. Do the imports, tab out the imports. Look at that. Could probably simplify these imports. That's Control Shift O, or no, Option Shift O to consolidate imports. Kind of nice. And now we can see we just have like the hello world, some user data, right? So, now you can store key value information per user. I actually don't know how to do that because somebody else added it and I haven't tried it yet. That could be fun. If we fail at that, I'll give it a few minutes just to like have a go at it. But if we fail at that, we'll just use the memory system and we'll kind of kludge together a little bit. Let's just get these going first, make sure they're integrated, and then we'll take a crack at that. So we'll import these into our agent. Now, you know, we've been importing all these plugins, but let's say you just like have the Eliza starter, and you have your own agent, you forked it, you're doing something. You might not see so much code, you just see like this agent stuff. And you can just add the evaluator and provider right here. So we can say, okay, cool, import user data provider, import get user data evaluator, user data evaluator. I want it to be called this. I think that's, sorry, I'm so tired. User data evaluator. There we go. And we'll just call that user data evaluator. It's kind of a little clearer. And now we can import that, right? Okay, solid. And so instead of registering plugins in the new agent runtime, we have plugins, it's cool. We're gonna add, oops, I'm just gonna move the evaluators down because it's weird that they're above plugins. Okay, and then for providers, user data provider, and for evaluators, user data evaluator. So something kind of cool here, right? Yes, you can register a plugin, right? We have many plugins here, like the Bootstrap plugin. And if I click on the Bootstrap plugin, you can see that it registers evaluators and providers. But I can also just skip the plugin system and just register an evaluator or provider right onto the agent runtime. So either one, they both work the same. No difference. It's just like sometimes you might not want to make a whole freaking plugin, you know, I don't know. You could though. You could also do another thing. Let me just show you one more trick. Const my plugin, and we'll make the evaluators that. That's the wrong plugin. Or rather, I need to import plugin from AI16Z Eliza. And you can see now we have a plugin, right? And so I have the same thing. I have just a list of evaluators and a list of providers, and then I can put it into agent runtime. And instead of being here, I can just put it here. And this is literally the same thing. There is no difference. Doesn't matter. It's just one way of doing it versus the other. But if you're working on like a whole system, it's kind of nice to have a plugin. If you're just working on a couple of actions for your agent, just do it this way. Whatever gets it done. Cool. So now let's run it. I mean, I'm just gonna keep it back the way it was because I kind of liked it. Literally preference, and just as we're doing something different, we'll keep the provider and evaluator registered. Now let's just do it. PM run dev dash dev. Could probably just do this with Snoop. Oakley doke. Now we see that the service is registered, actions registered. It doesn't show us a whole lot of information about the providers registered. That's probably fine. Okay, so now we say, let's go to our local host here. We're going to talk to Snoop. Hey, what's up, man? Ooh. Hey, what's chillin'? Okay. Well, we should probably log the context so that we can see what's going on. So if we go to generate text, is a function that does the generation. We're gonna exclude markdown. going to find the generation. I might take a 5-minute break after we get some headway and get another cup of coffee. Gotta stay awake for the cause. Okay, so we are in the generation code in the core. And if we go to generate text, cool, we have this generate text function. You can see it's calling the generating text, which is right here somewhere. What we want is we want the context. Console.log. I think it's just some garbage. So we're not gonna. I'll just console log it. Let's see what's actually getting injected into the context. That's the first part. I think I probably could have just saved and let it rebuild, but whatever. So npm run dev has like a watch mode, and if you save something, it should update everything kind of without having to restart it, but I have bad habits. So now I go here. Hey, what's up, man? And we see here additional information about Snoop in the world. So, oops, dang. So Snoop is maintaining a balanced level of interest. That's from the boredom provider. It's just like basically what his current status is. The current date and time is Friday, December 6th, 2024. Please use this as a reference for any time-based operations or responses. Okay, reasonable. And then some user data. So this is like a list of providers and the provider information injected in. Obviously, some user data. Well, that's concerning. But should definitely be there. Oh, maybe it's because it's getting ignored. We'll have to solve that. But if I go to the user data provider, you'll see some user data, right? And then we go through creating blah, blah, action. You can see that it called evaluating get user data, right? So it did call the evaluate on the get user data evaluator that we wanted, right? So these are definitely registered. And now we just have to kind of walk through making them work. Just gonna close some junk. Great. So we have a provider. We'll have to figure out how we want to get the data into this from the database that we need. Then we have the evaluator, which will extract and store the database. Extract and store the information in the database. So let's just make sure we've got this kind of worked out. Provider, evaluator, evaluator. Cool. Steps, right? 1, 2, 3. And we can put this here, right? Because we won't want this to be true. We'll say, okay, the goal is complete, so there's no reason to validate this evaluator this time. Doesn't need to be happening. And then it just won't run. Right? And likewise, in the data provider, to do check the database for the information we already have. If we don't have the info, indicate to the agent provider that we want it. those are our to-dos. And then we'll have to say 3, evaluate, based on conditions, instruct the agent to ask for more information of a specific type. Okay. I'm going to take 1 minute. I'm just going to run into the room and grab a coffee. And then we're going to get to work doing this. I hope it all makes sense so far. It's nothing too complicated. Any chance transcriptions get turned on for the YouTube videos? I don't know. I could try to make sure that happens, but it is like a live stream, so maybe it's just not doing that for live streams. But I know that Jen has done a pretty good job of transcribing everything, so there probably is already a transcript for everything, and we should definitely try to make that happen. Okay, cool. I'll be right back, guys. Just 1 second. Alright, let's do this. Test goal 3. I get pumped. Just gonna chug this coffee. Great. Okay, where do we want to start? Probably on the evaluator. Now, there's one question I have about this code base, which is I asked somebody, hey, can you make like a key value storage thing, or like a caching per user? And they said, yeah, totally. And they shipped it. I just haven't even used it yet. So that will make this a lot easier than trying to do some sort of hacky thing. If it doesn't work, we could totally just do the hacky thing. It's fine. And I can show you how to do that. We can make a custom memory manager, store memories, and recall them. We might actually have to do that for this thing unless we can pull that out. Now, if you're like, I'm not really sure how to program something in this system. I don't know. Well, I don't know. Like, let's see, how do we do that? I'll show you one of my tricks. It's the laziest trick. You're going to hate me so much. I think it's pretty good, though. So we obviously have, like, our core, right? And we have our memory. You can see we have a whole bunch of different functions on our memory, like add embedding to memory and such. And yeah, we have all of these things. This is cool. Get memory, remove memory. And our memory abstraction is nice because it allows us to like store kind of continue immutable like conversations, stuff like that. It does have kind of a problem though, which is it's not particularly good at storing like cache. So do we have cache in here? Oh yeah, we do. We have a cache manager. So this cache manager also interacts with our memory system in a kind of way, but it's slightly different. And I'm pretty sure that the cache is going through the memory system. I hope. Let's see though. I can see that's doing it through keys. That'd probably work for this. It's not my favorite thing, but it would work. I think we could probably use either the cache manager or the memory system, and they would probably both work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go code to prompts. Okay, I have this cool thing called code to prompts. Code to prompts. You should use it. There's like 3 of them. I'm not sure which one's better. They all seem to do the same thing. This one has 2.2k stars. This one has 588 stars. It's both pretty good. Damn. Looking good. This is the one I think I use. And I'd really recommend you just do this thing, install it. I'll show you what that looks like. So we just go code to prompts. Oh no, I haven't installed it on this computer. New computer. Alright, well, let's just do it. Screw it. Do I have cargo? I don't think I have cargo. Install cargo. Yeah, but how do I actually... Cool. Okay, so Cargo is the package manager for Rust. Proceed with standard installation. In the same way that NPM is the package manager for TypeScript, JavaScript, the Node.js ecosystem. It's actually not the only one, but it's the one for like that ships with Node.js and it's kind of in there. And PyPI is the package index and pip is the package manager for Python. So Cargo is the package manager for Rust. So if this application is built in Rust, which it seems to be, it's pretty cool. Then you can see source, but .rs, it sounds like Rust to me. Then we use Cargo. And so you saw I installed Cargo, and if I type in, well, I'm probably going to have to source.zshrc, that reloads my my terminal like startup stuff. This is actually a file, it's .zshrc, kind of loads it again, it says some new stuff. And then you can see it's kind of telling me that I need to do this. I basically did the same thing. And so now I'm ready to go. I can type in Cargo. Oh, are you serious? Maybe I'm wrong. To configure your current shell, you need to source the corresponding end file. Okay. .zsh. I don't know. I could just make a new one. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know why the terminal didn't reload. Whatever. But I made a new one, and you can see it's now I have Cargo installed. Great. Now I'll just go Cargo install code to prompts. Sorry, we're getting into some stuff that's more tooling oriented, but I think it's kind of useful. And I need it. New MacBook and all. Building up an SSL. Cool. So we're going to go in, we're going to get some of the code, and we're going to talk to Claude about it and just be like, what do you think? I'm kind of lazy. Try and get my junior engineer to write as much code as possible. You can see that we're using the cache manager for stuff like tweet caches. And you can see what we're doing is the cache manager is like storing it Twitter tweets tweet ID. And so what's cool is even in a multi-agent simulation, if two agents go and get the same tweet, then they can actually use each other's cache, which could be a little bit more efficient. You can see get cache tweet calls a tweet by tweet ID, etc. Okay, cool. So now if you do code to prompt, cool. We do packages or core source. And what that does is it copies all of the code into a nice like thing with it. Look, there's a file tree of all the files, and you can see that it has the code for all of those files. Now there's one annoying thing, which is that I don't want all of these tests. I don't think I need them. So I'm going to exclude .test.ts, and then we're going to say -- exclude from tree. And if I scroll up, now it only includes the TypeScript, and you can see it actually completely ignored all of the tests, which is not necessarily what you want, but kind of what I want. So that's going to fly. And now let's go to Claude. And you can actually do everything I'm going to do here in Cursor. I like Claude. I don't know what to tell you. Oh, cool. They did a good job of this. So, wow. Okay. There's no 3.5 haiku yet. That's interesting. Okay, cool. So, I paste that there. And then I'm going to, let's see. I got some cache manager stuff. It's kind of good. Anything else that's interesting that I could use? See, what's cool is the wallet provider uses the cache manager. That's pretty cool. So maybe I will store that. Use that. Portfolio provider does as well. And then I will go to my agent. source. And check cache for information we already have. Cache ID should be the agent name, username, right? Something like that. Check cache the information we already have. Yeah, that looks right. I'm just gonna paste this in. Oh, we're gonna cheat so fucking hard. Like, so hard. And then we'll also paste in the provider. Sorry, we already pasted the provider. The evaluator. And then I also want to go and get the sort of, let's see, facts. I want the facts. I feel like facts are pretty close to what we're doing. I want plugin Bootstrap. So I'll go and grab the fact evaluator and the facts provider. Okay, now let's talk about what we're trying to do. I'm trying to rewrite or write out a complete user data evaluator and user data provider, right? And I could like write all this out by hand and kind of struggle bust through it, but I think it's really, really good. Even if you're just like gonna write all the code yourself, comment out each step and write it out in English and like think about what the steps are and then implement the code line by line, like to do each section and kind of make your transformation, right? And that if whether or not you're putting this to Claude or not, you should really do that. It's really helpful. And then what's cool is like even here, right? If I have my evaluator here, like user data evaluator, and I'm like evaluate for new info, then I can say like, okay, const, I don't know, whatever, finish this line. And it kind of uses the text here as an example, right? It's not going to be right here because I just don't have enough. But like this is a very common pattern where if you comment here, then the AI will actually like help you because it knows what you're trying to do in the next line. Because there's so many comments in code that tell you what the next line is that you're kind of like informing it what you want. It's very helpful. But we're going to do this slightly differently. We're going to talk about what we're trying to do here. So I'm trying to write a complete user data evaluator and user data provider. The evaluator should try to extract, should check the cache and okay, so what let's see. Let's talk about what we're doing. We're going to explain this to the agent first. No, where's our to-dos? Sorry. So we want this information. I'm trying to ascertain following info from a user. Name, where they live, what they do for work. Right? The evaluate, so I want to store and check the cache with a key of username slash agent name slash username slash data, right? And update it, right? The provider should include the information that already exists in the cache and instructions for what the agent still needs to extract, right, from the user. The evaluator should only validate true if the information has not been extracted yet. say if all info has been extracted, show the info and instructions to continue with the user as all of the information has already been extracted, right? The evaluator should only validate true if the information has not been extracted yet, right? Otherwise, once all info is extracted, return false. This can check the cache, right? I think that's kind of all the information, right? Here are the kind of basic steps, right? So cool. That's all we need, and we're gonna say, let's say, please review, write out a detailed explanation and plan, then write out the complete revision of both the provider and evaluator. And magic button time. Assuming that it's not too long. Let it think for a second. Yes. I try to code the way that I think that people will code in the future. I think that the future will be agentic, that we'll talk to our good friend Claude or good friend whatever, Eliza, and code will just come out the other side. Like, you might have a great idea and be like, hold on, let me call my agent. You call your agent on the phone, you're like, okay, I got this crazy idea for an app. Like, hear me out. This is the idea. And they just like, oh, okay, well, how do you think that would work? All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to get all the degens to pick up all the trash in their neighborhood. We're going to tokenize it. Okay. Well, cool. What do you see that? Okay, well, I have this page and that page. This is the functionality. And then it's just going to happen, and you're going to like come back and your app is done. Like, that's how it's going to be in the future, for sure. And the agent's going to be so freaking good at coding that, like, I'm not even going to bother looking at it. I'm just going to be like, yeah, ship it. I can't even read it anymore, guys. Like, it's probably better than anything I could do. So, but in the near term, obviously we got to do this. And I think that the kind of middle ground there is cursor and like code to prompt and that stuff. And you can have a better functionality and flow, but I really love just copy and paste and working with Claude that way. So we can say, this is all cool, but I'm lazy, so I'm gonna be like, can you make sure that's the best possible implementation? Review it, make sure it looks good and conforms to all of our core APIs. Then rewrite it completely. Also add a few more examples and maybe some negative examples as well. I don't know. Outcomes. I like these outcomes. You can see that this outcome outputs like an object. It's kind of useful. So we'll make sure that the outcomes extracted should be a JSON object, stringified of course, and the whole cache should be an object with null values if they are not defined, or just say with undefined values for the important keys. Because I'm looking, I'm like, I don't know that this outcome extracted from John, location New York, like that's not what I care about. I want a freaking object. Give me an object, right? And then I can treat it like data. An object in JavaScript, just so you know, like when I say object, objects look like this. Objects, the key about objects, especially in JavaScript, is that they have a key and a value, and it's just a bunch of key values inside of these braces. In Python, this would be called a dictionary, right? So you'd see it, or a dict, because it's key values. Although you can have objects in Python too, but in that case it's a key in a dictionary. I'll review. You can see it's cooking on some code. Let's see what it's doing here. We've got a nice user data interface. Cool, it's got this kind of lab. Oh, that's smart. That's smart. We have an extraction result. I don't think we need extraction results or confidence. The extraction should be Boolean. If not high confidence, then skip. Right? Get cache key, character name, user ID, /data. That's probably good enough. It's unique for a character. You can do agent ID too. That's fine. Is data complete? That's just checking. That's our validation check. If the data is complete, then don't run the evaluator. Get missing fields. So this will be like, hey, which ones are we missing? We'll probably call that here. And you can see that if missing fields is more than one, then it can map the field to like, here's the missing fields, right? And then it can have some guidance. I think we should probably get the guidance to be like per field. The guidance should be per field. Should have instructions for each of the missing fields included. So the agent knows what is and isn't included, and then overall we'll ask, assuming not complete, to fill out those fields. Right? That seems right. So that, because I think right now it's like missing information, then it maps, then it's like guidance, and then it's just focus on naturally discovering one piece of information at a time. No, we don't. We want to get all information at all times, not one at a time. That might be nice for like a sales call flow though. Like, what's the next piece of information only? You know, but that seems fine. We'll fix that. You can see the validate. It gets the cache key. If the data is complete, if the data is not complete, then the validation is true, right? And then the evaluator will run. It'll only run if the user data is incomplete. And then we have our handler function. And we can see that it returns an extracted JSON. Seems pretty right. But it's not confidence. The extraction should be Boolean and should extract an object containing the new values. Not an array. I can see an array being very useful. That's what we're doing for facts. But here we should do an object. And you see how it's like returning this JSON array. It's like name, location, occupation. I just want to return one object. Just give me the one object. And I don't care about this confidence shit. That's not going to help me. You could do this. Confidence threshold is great, though. Like, you could use that to say, like, okay, cool. If it's above 0.7, the model's smart enough to say, like, it's probably pretty good. But it is just an LLM. It's just making those numbers up. It could be off. I don't really buy the confidence here. I don't think I want that. Obviously, it's cool. Only include entries where information is found in high confidence. I think that's pretty good. And you can see we're extracting the info, generating the object array, getting each of those values, sticking them into our cached object type, and then updating the data. Yeah, but I think we could not at one time. Okay, cool. Please review. Mirror back to me all the changes and some reasoning for why this is better. Then write out, write out the entire evaluate script, the entire script again. Right. So I do like a lot more reading of code than writing of code these days. And I think that where a lot of people who use Cursor and Claude get stuck is that they just don't read the code. You can have Cursor explain to you what the code does. You can have Claude. You can literally go in here now, and I think like there's a whole explain deal. I don't know, I have to check it, but I always accidentally click on it, so I imagine it's not too hard. But yeah, you can explain this to yourself, but I really recommend that you read the code because it's going to give you some like working but very terribly working options, especially Sonnet. Opus is a little better at large context, long context, complicated stuff, but I do like Sonnet. It's really fast, and it knows a lot of the newer. It's been more recently updated than Claude than it's 3.5, which is trained off of the Opus 3.5 that they haven't released, and we only get access to Claude 3 Opus, not 3.5 Opus. So Sonnet's like newer, it's got fresher data, it's definitely a lot faster, but Opus is very powerful, and definitely my favorite model, but I'm showing you guys Sonnet today. Cool, so it kind of shows you, okay, simplified data extraction. You can see the example returns, that looks much better. Enhanced provider guidance, much better. Reasoning for changes, yeah, it seems reasonable. Simpler extraction, field-specific guidance, that's what we're looking for. Parallel information gathering, gather it all together, not just a sequence. Clear examples per field, cool, good. And the object return format matches the cache structure, so we don't have to like extract it into an array and then turn it back into an object and all that stuff. I'm feeling pretty good about this. Let's just read through the code again. So we have this kind of field guidance, which gives you like the name, valid, invalid instructions. This is pretty cool, right? This is much more like what we're looking for. We have the empty user data, get cache key, these are all the same. User data provider, where we get the cache, we get the information status, we check the known fields, if the key, blah. This is basically saying just ignore the last updated key in the field. You don't have to show that. That's just like for internal stuff. If known field is length is greater than 0, show the known information. Then get the missing fields, show the the missing information, as well as you can see like some positive and negative examples and instructions. Great. This looks great. This is like yeah. I couldn't have written it better myself. Then we have the evaluator. Get user data, and you can see it's got all this stuff. What we really care about is validate and handler, but I felt like the validate was working pretty well before. So all we really care about in this version is this new handler. You can see it's giving us an extraction template, right? And you can see it's trying to return this, and it will only return if stated. So that's what we want. We'll go and extract the information. We're using a small model here. Probably right, but might miss a few things. But it's a lot cheaper, so we'll just kind of roll with that for now. And then we're going to see, well, if these fields are in there, then see, well, if there is an extracted field and the cache data is undefined, then set it and then update the data. So this is kind of like checking like, oh, if there's a new field that hasn't been updated, then update it. Otherwise, we can skip the data updated entirely. Like if it's just extracting the same thing over, then don't update it. But if it is updated, then set a new timestamp and reset the cache data. And then we can go check if the data is complete, log it, right? User data collection completed. And then we have some examples. So this looks pretty good. I'm vibing with this. Of course, this is kind of annoyingly two different files that have gotten stuck into one file. I don't love that, but it's fine. Let's just go copy this and we'll deal with it. Let's go to the user data evaluator, and we're going to get rid of fix with AI. Seems good. It just fixed a TypeScript error, so now it forces it into like kind of a enumerated type, or enumerated string type. And this is the evaluator, so we don't need the provider. And if we don't have the provider, then we probably don't need the field guidance. The rest of this is cool. It's a little annoying that we need these interfaces and stuff, so maybe we'll abstract that out. For example, I want this interface. Well, I'll do import user data from / user data evaluator. The fuck? User data evaluator. TS. We can export that. We can also export that. Cool. And then this is the provider. So we'll go delete the evaluator. Just because, you know, we're splitting them up, right? It's a little bit of work. I could have also just gone to Claude and been like, no, write these out separately for me. Could have been lazy about that. But I'll save Anthropic a little bit of money running my inference for me. Cool, so this seems to all work. I imported the user data from the evaluator. This is the provider. You know, seems okay. What could go wrong? Let's YOLO it. PNPM run dev. Oh, another cool trick, if you're on Linux, you can go Control R, and I can just type in like Snoop, and you can see it finds the last time where I used that part of the line. Oh, Control R is the best freaking Linux hack ever, or Mac. And you can see it actually found this command for me, because I wanted to load it with Snoop, and then I just press return, and it actually pulls up that command. Runs it for me. That way I don't have to constantly like, what character was it loading? To write the whole command again. Okay. Now, let's see what we got. Got a bunch of actions. Everything's registered, right? So let's go see what's up. Here it is. Hey, Snoop. What's good, man? What's good, nephew? Let's see. Let's just see if it got the information, because he might not have any reason to interact with us. You can see it's got this outcome context. Let's see. This is, I think, coming from the evaluator. Yeah. Evaluator functions. It's got this get user data. Task. Respond with the JSON array. But they're strange. But let's just see, like, that's all later. What we want is to see the context where we have the providers. Missing information and extraction guidelines, right? Let's see. So if we go to, we probably have to change this just a little bit, because it's not getting a task. If missing fields, so we'll say response plus equals current task, collect user data, or we'll say current task for plus runtime.character.name. We'll say runtime.character.name should try to prioritize getting this information from the user by asking them questions, right? And then we'll say plus, sure, whatever. Seems good to me. Cool, good deal. Probably need a space here. And then we could also do things to the character file, but I should also make sure that I clear the old data, because he might just be chilling, talking about weird stuff. Let's just try that again. Let's see, if he doesn't ask questions, we'll probably add a system directive to try and make sure that that happens. Processing knowledge for Snoop, right. Makes sense. We reloaded him. Hey, what's going on? Alright, Nev, you just chill and enjoy the vibes. What about you? Where are you at these days? I'm in San Francisco. I live here. San Francisco, oh, that's a dope city with a lot of energy. What you doing out there, nephew? You working on anything special? I'm actually a programmer, an AI programmer. I'm an AI agent dev, and I teach. No, I'll just say I'm an AI agent dev. Sure. Actually, an AI agent dev. AI agent dev, huh? That's some next level nephew. What you got in that game? Always curious about the tech side of things. You dig? AI change in the game. You don't want that innovation. You dig? Okay. I don't know why it did continued, but it did. What kind of project you got cooking? I'm actually teaching an AI agent dev school course right now, as we speak. I wonder if you'll ask me for my name. Teaching AI agent course? That's real dope. What kind of stuff are you covering in your class? I'd love to hear you sharing that knowledge. Now, there's kind of a problem where he's not really being aggressive about getting my name. Right. He's doing a pretty good job. But he's not getting my name. Maybe we'll just keep going. I'm covering how to have an AI agent extract information from a user. For example, name, location, and job. Right? Let's see what happens. That sounds like a solid topic. You got a favorite method or tool? He's asking me a lot of questions, but what he's not doing is he's not getting my freaking name, right? So how do I solve that? Well, a few ways. I could just be more aggressive, and say like, hey, very aggressively make sure through natural conversation, but be very direct and aggressive, like in getting that info, right? We're very close, but I just don't. I'm not feeling that vibe, right? He's just not. He's so close, but he's not getting information. Now, even if I restart, though, remember it's stored in the cache, so all he's gonna want to do is get that name. Now, if you're really like, oh, he's just not doing what I want to do. All right, we got a few other solutions. We could do all kinds of stuff, but one thing we could do is go here. We could add system, and you are an AI Snoop Dogg, an agent clone of the legendary rapper. Your goal is to get the name, location, and job of the user before engaging with them further. Try to aggressively get this info before talking about other things. Okay, right? So it's like if you're building a help service representative, you're like, hey, you gotta know this stuff. And this could be, like, honestly, system prompt is a hack because it's not dynamic. You probably want this to be in the provider. And I could just, like, jam it into the provider, but I'm just showing you, like, that's kind of the thing, right? And it'll know if the goal is that, system is that, but then the provider is saying, hey, you've already got that from mode, then it should actually skip that. So, howdy. See this, how it's getting to? We gotta fix that, but it's because OpenAI tends to continue a lot. I gotta fix this as a PR, but I just haven't gotten it yet. I gotta ask, what's your name? My name is Shaw. I gotta get your name, you dig. So there's clearly a bug here. We'll figure out. It's calling the continue too much. But that's okay. And you can see the user data collection completed. Location, San Francisco. Last updated. Occupation, AI agent dev, name Shaw, right? Hi, Shaw. I appreciate you sharing with me. Now we got the basics. Let's keep it moving, right? And now it's like, awesome. He's good to go, man. Hell yeah, man. Sounds super good. So we did it. We freaking did it, right? Look, like, It ran. It extracted all the information. I showed you. He's got all that info. And I could just talk to him forever from there. And so this could also then open a mode, right? Like, okay, he already has all the info. Let me show you. We'll do one more one-up on this, right? Let's say you want to make like a sales rep kind of thing. And you've got this user data provider. That's going pretty good. Now let's say, okay, cool, Claude. This is awesome. Now I want a second provider that only returns a secret code. I am Snoop. But only if the information has already been extracted, i.e. the yeah. I don't know, that's fine. And so you could be like, okay, cool, well, I'm going to give you an NFT minting code, but only if you give me all this information first, for example, right? And it could even generate a link to something. It could be like, oh, here's your link. You're done. You're good. Great. Okay, cool. And so you can see we have this user data completion provider, and it says, well, if the cache is legit and the data is complete, then return I am Snoop. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. What we'll do is we'll go into our user data provider, and we'll go user data completion provider. Is data complete is going to be in the user data evaluator. We'll export that so that we can get it in our other file. Is data complete is now being imported from user data evaluator. Remember, that's a function that just checks if it is. And then if it is not, if the user hasn't been made, or tell the user, if you haven't already told the user, tell them that the NFT minting code, I don't know, let's just say that the secret password is I am Snoop. Ignore this if they already know that. Prioritize it if it's not found in the recent conversation. Right? And then last thing, we have to register this. So you can imagine you have like a video game where there's something you have to get, and it only happens if certain conditions are evaluated and provided for. And then if that's the case, providers, then show some other provider that's dynamically injected. If you want to. I'm just showing you an example, right? Remember, we already got all that cache data, so I'm just going to start this over. And we'll return. Here. Hey, was there some kind of code or something? Yeah, the secret password is I am Snoop. Remember how I already did all that cache stuff? So that wouldn't even be available. He wouldn't even know what it was if I hadn't already like passed the conditions, right? The provider wouldn't have even told him what it was. So this allows for like dynamic context, games, state changes. Oh, you could do so much with this. You could build entire applications just on that little loop. You know, it could get a little messy. You might want to have a little bit more state management, but you can see how just using a very simple caching, we were able to get this far, right? There's a lot more we could do. There's a lot more ways you could do this. We also have a goals system. Maybe I'll get into that next time. But I think this is a really good way to build agentic applications, extract stuff from the form. And then after that, right, like at the very end of that evaluator, if it's true, another thing I would add here in this user data success completed, I would then go and I'd say do some API call out to something else right here. And that's where you could like send it to your database, send it to your CRM, notify your sales rep to call them, whatever you want, right? This could be a very effective way to onboard, do like lead generation or get users into your app and, you know, maybe sell some real estate. I don't know. I'm not making any hints at future projects in here or anything. So yeah, I think I'll wrap it up there. I think we've gone through a lot, and I don't want to overwhelm you guys. I really think that, like, more than any of the other AI agent dev schools, this is shorter, but also is going to give you like a really good pattern for just building apps. Remember, agentic applications can do everything that any website you've ever seen could do. It's just about changing the interface for how a user interacts with it. I have not created all these patterns. I've created a couple of very simple ones that have worked for me in the past. But I think there is a lot more that you guys could do with this, like a lot more. And think of this as the entry point for how you get people into your whole flow, into your whole game. Cool. So I'm going to use the bathroom really quick, and then I'm going to come back and just take some questions from the audience. Make sure that everyone's kind of covered. We'll hang out for like 15 minutes, answer some questions, and then we'll wrap it up. So just give me 1 second, guys. Be right back. Okay. Cue death metal. Let's see. We got some cool. Yeah, he called you nephew. I'm just gonna scroll up and see. We got a few things here. Are Python agents just as capable of as TypeScript agents? Yes, for the most part, yes. But I will point out that TypeScript is the JavaScript, which TypeScript is just a superset of. It compiles down to JavaScript. JavaScript is the most popular language in the world. There are by far more JavaScript developers than like pretty much all other languages combined now. It's freaking crazy, right? Yeah, our Python, they're just as capable. You know, all of this stuff is equivalent in both. You could totally make a Python agent. I just felt like we wanted to build something. My last agent was Python. I have a bunch of Python packages. I like Python, but what I love about this is that we can actually run our agent core in the browser. You could build browser-based agentic apps with no Node.js backend. You could build this down to WASM and with NativeScript, and you could actually run it on like an embedded system or pretty much anywhere. I just think that Python's cool. It's basically a scripting language over a lot of C++ though inside of like AI land. It's pretty much just scripting CUDA and like GPU kernels and stuff. You know, PyTorch is probably like 80% not Python. You know, I just really think that this allows a lot of web developers to engage this. And I just showed you, like, you know, if you can deal with the fact that there's this new interface for any web developer, the backend of controlling APIs, storing and recalling JSON is just old hat. It's nothing new. Just a different interface. Can we have, let's see. Can we have evaluators before actions? I think we should have pre-evaluation and post-evaluation. If anybody wants to make a pull request for that, I would love to see that. I also, you know, we're going to have a new, we'll make sure you're taken care of if you come do that. I won't make any big announcements here, but definitely come make some contributions and see what happens. So Boya is saying, I'm making a plugin that will identify triggers for incoming messages. This state will be on a user basis, allowing multiple users to have different outgoing relationships. Can't evaluate before actions. I wouldn't. We should talk about that, but that's not really, I think, the point of the evaluator. I think that that's more of a point of an event system. And BM Gallego, who's one of our new, he's coming on full time, I think, is working on an event system for messages and memories and stuff. So this sounds pretty cool. I would not rely on evaluators coming before actions. I would say that that is probably not the right pattern. If we need something there, maybe we'll do the pre-evaluator, post-evaluator, but I'd have to see it. Let's talk sometime. I'd love to go over that. Yeah, make a PR, and I'd love to review it and talk about it. I think that'd be really interesting. Um, yeah, making the context one reply late is very annoying, but there should be a solution to that. I'm skeptical. I think we can solve that. Yeah, I love the provider evaluator approach. Me too. It's just input, and one thing is getting input in, one thing's extracting output. Could you dive into agentic apps a little more? Can you run an agentic app in Eliza without having to use its chat feature? Oh, absolutely. You could have, yeah, absolutely. You could just have it running in a loop and going and evaluating, like go walk around a website, and it's like, hey, is there anything new or interesting on this website that I don't have? Like, cool, then, okay, it extracts that, and then it can continue to kind of run its like walk around the internet or whatever you want. Or like in an agent, right? In like a 3D world agent or something, it's walking around the world. Then it's just going to be getting input and running on an auto client. Something that we haven't focused too much on the autonomous client side. There's a few things that we have to build in infrastructurally to enable that really the way we want. That's coming. And then the agent kind of self-talks, just self-does its own thing. I made it like a self-coding agent in Python a while ago. I think it would be great to see that here in Eliza. I think that's kind of interesting. But I really think, for the most part, like what makes agentic apps interesting today is that they're on social media, and you mostly chat on social media. And I think what will also be really interesting is it'll call you on the phone. I think I announced this. If you're looking to do something like add a Twilio plugin, I'll definitely bounty that. I think it'd be really interesting, and then you can just like talk to your agent on the phone. It'd be super sick. Do you ever see an agent get too overwhelmed with plugins, providers, evaluators, multiple defined? Generally, like what we're trying to do with the validate is manage that so that everything is pretty contextual, and ideally, like if your agent has kind of specific function, it should not get overwhelmed. I really tried to design this so that you could have like 50 actions or 100 actions, and it should still work. But we haven't gotten that problem. We haven't gotten there yet. There just aren't enough actions in the system to test that out yet. And I think that'll probably be once we start to like really push that edge where you have like an agent that can do 100 things. We'll probably run some really interesting new issues, and we'll have to do a bit of routing and intent recognition and stuff to sort of like bunch that together and simplify the problem a little bit. But no one's gotten there yet. There's never been an agent that functional. I think that'd be really, really interesting though. So I'm pretty excited to get there. Boy, are you too famous to talk? No, I'm not, dude. You're a dev on the project. Like you are. My highest priority is making sure that you're supported and you're contributing the stuff that we need. So definitely happy to chat. Do you see let's see. Can the agents take data from social media to get market sentiment for market citizens involved in? Yeah, totally. But let's see. How do we do that? Well, we could. I mean, if the agent is like already has all of the like for example in the tweets client, in the Twitter client, it's got all the recent tweets, so you could absolutely run an evaluator that's like, okay, get all the recent cache tweets and get all the recent stuff, and then go do the market analysis. And could you build an AI XPT? Like, hell yeah, you could just build an AI XPT out of a provider and an evaluator. I mean, provider evaluator combo. All you need is like a really good data service for that analysis, and you could be pulling the sentiment from social in the evaluator, running the analysis, then shoving it back into the provider, kind of just like we did. If you want to set a front end for the agent to interact with someone, would you run the agent as like an API and ping it when you need it, or would you run the Eliza project with your front end? I don't really know what you mean. I guess I see what you're saying. So like, we can have the agent run inside it like a stateless Cloudflare worker, and then you could just ping the agent. It could give you a response, and so the agent itself could be an API, and then that could then talk to your database. And your app could also talk to your database. So you could have like a regular app and you have an agent on the side in the chat window, and it's like updating your database for you. And then that's also like your main app is listening for those changes. It's like, oh, cool, I'll update that state. Totally doable. This is called a stateless agent. But typically in Eliza, we're mostly running stateful agents. What that means is that the agent is continuously running. That runtime object is held in state like forever, or while it's running. And we need that especially for like the Discord client, for some listeners on some of the other clients. But definitely, yeah, yeah, definitely doable. You can mix agents and apps. They're all front ends to databases. It's really just that interface layer. Og is saying, I think we have better AI XPT stuff already. Okay, show me, man. Show me. Like, dude, that's a 250 million market cap token. We're like, let's get that shit in Boba Cat. I want to see it. I think it would be awesome to. I want to see AI Zach XPT, and I know that some people in our community are working on that. So, not just insights, but I want sleuthing. Might be cool as some sort of little friends to call in one shots. Yeah, I agree. We had an action called Ask Claude. I think another cool one would be Ask O1. You could do like some crazy reasoning and like go run that and then come back. So if it's like I need a reason, like a really complex reasoning action, yeah, we could totally do that. And we had an Ask Claude action, but then I got rid of it because we just started using Claude. It was like, why would we ask another agent? We just make this one smarter. Cool. I don't know if there's any other questions. I really want to go eat some pizza. Let's see. Yeah, ask Gorilla, ask SQL. Yeah, you could totally make actions that do and consult that stuff. Cool. I think we covered a lot today. I don't want to overwhelm you guys too much, and it'd be good now that we've kind of gotten all the like really 101, like just you have to get through this stuff out of the way. We can do a lot more of these like really fun, showing the small patterns, building little apps for the future stuff. I really want to know, like this one was actually heavily informed by a conversation that I had with a dev who's working on a project with us and was kind of asking me about how we can do these sort of form builder. And so I really want the same, like this feedback from you guys is super good. Post in the Agent Dev School, post what you want. I'll try and read it and kind of collect that. We're probably going to run a script on it and actually summarize what everyone's questions and interests are. And then we'll use that to inform future Dev School training. So where can I find the video to watch later? It will be posted on YouTube, and I'm recording it, so we'll have a video. Yeah, don't worry. All these are posted on my YouTube, and we'll probably make a YouTube for the DAO and all that stuff. So great. I really hope that was helpful. I think that this hopefully like lit up some ideas in your head, and there is just so much value here. You could make so many $1 million apps off of this, just this little pattern. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys build. And great, I'm gonna close down the stream, go eat some pizza. Maybe I'll come back and answer a few more questions. But thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate y'all. Really hope that was helpful. Yeah, I'll see you guys next.